Good day, everyone. I am Sweet Dimple Heart Iyose, and I will discuss to you the rules of inference. An argument in propositional logic is a sequence of propositions. All but the final proposition in the argument are called premises, and the final proposition is called the conclusion. An argument is valid if the truth of all its premises implies the conclusion is true. An argument formed in propositional logic is a sequence of compound propositions involving propositional variables. An argument form is valid no matter which particular propositions are substituted for the propositional variables in its premises. The conclusion is true if the premises are all true. Rules of inference simple arguments can be used as building blocks to construct more complicated valid arguments. Certain simple arguments that have been established as valid are very important in terms of their usage. These arguments are called rules of inference. We have here the 8 rules of inference. First is the modus ponens. When we say modus ponens, it is also known as modus ponendo, ponens or implication, elimination, or affirming the antecedent. It is a deductive argument form and rule of inference. It can be summarized as P implies Q, P is true, therefore Q must also be true. This one is the first premise, and this one is the second premise, and this one is the conclusion. When we say premise, according to Google, premise is a previous statement or proposition from which another is inferred or follows as a conclusion. Next is modus tollens. When we say modus tollens, P implies Q and not Q, therefore it's not P. Modus tollens is a valid argument form in propositional calculus in which N are propositions. Next is hypothetical syllogism. Hypothetical syllogisms are short two-premise deductive arguments in which at least one of the premise is conditional, the antecedent or consequent of which also appears in other premise. If P implies Q and Q implies R, then the conclusion is P implies R. Makakancel ang Q. Next is the disjunctive syllogism. When we say disjunctive syllogism, it is a valid argument form which is a syllogism having a disjunctive statement for one of its premises. If P or Q and not P, and the conclusion is Q, matatanggal itong P. Next is the addition. In this side, ito yung pinakamadali, the basic part of rules of inference. Itong addition, from the word or, ito yung ginagamit sa rules of inference. Pagpaplasin mo siya. Kaya ang magiging conclusion is P or Q. Next is simplification. From the word itself, simplify, magiging ganito siya. Kaya matatanggal itong Q at ang matitira is P. Next is conjunction. Conjunction is like combined like terms. Ito din ang gagamitin din na symbols. P and Q. Therefore, P and Q. Next is resolution. Matatanggal itong P kaya ito ang magiging sagot. We have here the examples of modus ponens. If you have a current password, then you can log on to the network. This is the first premise. I-denote natin tong if you have a current password as P. Then you can log on to the network. I-denote natin tong network as Q. Next is another statement. You have a current password denoted as P. And the conclusion is therefore, you can log onto the network. Ito na yung conclusion niya. Q. Next is the example of modus tollens. If the dog detects an intruder, the dog will bark. In this first statement, if the dog detects an intruder, this is the denoted as P. We will denote this as P. The dog will bark implies. We will denote this as Q. We have another statement here again. The dog did not bark. The dog did not bark. Kung dito sa statement natin, the dog will bark, dito naman, the dog did not. Kaya gagamitin natin itong not Q. Therefore, no intruder was detected by the dog. Therefore, the conclusion is P, not P. Next is the example for hypothetical syllogism. If I do not wake up, then I cannot go to work. In this first statement, if I do not wake up, we will denote this one as P. Then I cannot go to work, denoted as Q. And here, the second statement, if I cannot go to work, then I will not get paid. We have here the same statement in here. We will denote this one as Q because they have the same. They are the same. Then I will not get paid. This one is another premises. So we will denote this as R. Therefore, the conclusion is if I do not wake up, then I will not get paid. Kaya makakancel itong Q at ang matitira is P implies to R. Ito yung conclusion niya. Example for disjunctive syllogism. The breach is a safety violation or it is not subject to fines. The breach is not safety violation, therefore it is not subject to fines. For the first statement, the breach is a safety violation. I-denote natin siya as P. Or it is not subject to fines. I-denote natin siya as Q. For the second statement, the breach is not a safety violation. Ngayon na siya is not safety, not. I-denote natin siya as not P. Therefore, in this disjunctive syllogism, nakakancel itong P, kaya therefore it is not subject, kaya matitira is Q. So let's have an example number 1, and we will apply the rules of inference. Sweet has a kiss allergy. If Sweet is allergic to kisses, she cannot kiss anyone and her loved one. Therefore, Sweet is unable to kiss her loved ones. We have here our first premise. Sweet has a kiss allergy. Second premise, if Sweet is allergic to kisses, then she cannot kiss anyone. and her loved ones. She cannot kiss anyone and her loved one. Therefore, Sweet is unable to kiss her loved one. This is the conclusion. And ngayon, isusulat na natin dito sa 1 and 2 yung given. This is given or the premises. Ngayon, kailangan natin mapalabas itong conclusion, itong O. And now we will use the modus ponens since may amplification siya dito. Kaya matatanggal itong amplification at ang matitira is A and O. At ngayon, hinahanap natin itong O. Kaso, nasa right side siya. Kung gagamitin natin ang simplification, is matatanggal itong A. Itong A ang matatanggal natin ditong O. Kaya gagamitin natin ang commutative property. Babalitan siya. Kaya ang mangyayari is O and A. Commutative property. For the number 3. At ngayon, gagamitin natin siya, isi-simplify na natin para makuha yung O. Simplification. Simplification for number 4. Ngayon, ay palabas na natin ang O. Therefore, Sweet is unable to kiss her loved ones. Example number 2. If kite and rhombus are shapes, then they are polygons with 4 sides. If a polygon has 4 sides, then it is called a quadrilateral. Prove that a kite is a quadrilateral and a rhombus is a quadrilateral as well. If kite is a shape, then rhombus is a shape. We will denote it as kite as K and rhombus as R. K as R and K ay kite, and rhombus, then they are polygons. Denote natin ang polygons as P. Next, we have another statement. If a polygon has 4 sides, then it is called a quadrilateral. Polygon, i-denote natin siya as P, and quadrilateral is Q. P, then it is called a quadrilateral. Yan na siya. At ang conclusion niya is ipoprove natin that kite is a quadrilateral and rhombus is a quadrilateral as well. Now, isusulat na natin yung given. Second is P implies Q. Ito yung given. For the third step, gagamitin natin yung hypothetical syllogism para makancel itong P. Kaya ang matitira is kite and R simplifies to Q. Hypothetical syllogism sa 1 and 2. Sa fourth step is gagamit tayo ng simplification para matanggal itong R at itong K is magsisimplify kay Q. Simplification to number 3. For the fifth step, kailangan nating makuha itong R. Kaya iko-commutative property natin itong number 3. Next is iko-commutative property natin yung number 3. R and K simplifies to Q. Ito yung commutative property for number 3. Next step is isisimplify naman natin siya para matanggal tong K at maiwan tong R simplifies to Q. Simplification for number 5. And for the last step, para mapalabas itong conclusion, we will use the conjunction. Pagsasamahin natin itong 4 and 6. And number 6. This is the conjunction for 4 and 6. Yan, napalabas na natin ang conclusion. That's all about the rules of inference. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you for listening.